Hello and welcome to Her Money Mindset. I'm your host, Courtney Schweinler, and I am really glad that you're here. This podcast is a space for women who want to feel calmer, more confident, and more aligned with their money, not just on paper, but in real life. We talk about money, mindset, and the habits that we carry that shape the way we earn, spend, save, and plan for the future. But this is not just a numbers and spreadsheets kind of show. Here on Her Money Mindset, we talk about the emotional side of money, the stress, the guilt, the fear, the pressure to have everything all figured out. And more recently, we are also talking about what it actually looks like to release control, trust God more deeply, and steward our money in a way that actually supports the life you're trying to build. Now, whether you're living paycheck to paycheck, you're rebuilding after a tough season, or you're simply trying to be more intentional with what you have, this podcast is for you. You don't need to be perfect. You don't need to be an expert. You just have to be willing to take that next small step. Each week, we're going to walk through practical tools like budgeting, saving, debt payoff, financial planning, but we're also going to get honest about the deeper patterns behind our money choices, the beliefs that we learned growing up, the habits that we picked while we were in survival mode, and the ways that we sometimes try to control money instead of letting that money support us. Now, my goal is for you to leave each episode feeling less overwhelmed, more grounded, and more confident in your ability to make money decisions that align with your values. Before we jump into today's episode, I want to let you know that all of my budgeting tools are linked in the show notes, and that includes the budget spreadsheet I personally use, debt payoff tracker, and even a mortgage payoff calculator to help you see exactly how extra payments can change your timeline. And these tools are so amazing because they allow you to have some hope, right? And when you actually have a plan for your money, it truly makes such a transformational difference. And knowing that you're not powerless with your money and you're actually able to move the needle a little bit. And if becoming debt free is a bigger goal that you're working toward, I also offer my Mortgage Freedom Blueprint. This is a set of training modules where I walk you through both the strategy and the mindset behind becoming debt free. And this is designed with mortgages in mind, but the framework can absolutely be used for regular debt payoff too, including credit cards, car loans, and personal loans. You can explore those resources through the links in the show notes. And as an exclusive thank you for being such a loyal podcast listener, make sure that you use the code HMM Podcast at checkout for 15% off. Remember, that is code HMM Podcast at checkout for 15% off. And lastly, if this podcast has been helpful for you, I would truly, truly appreciate you leaving a review. This helps more women find the show, and it means more to me than you know. All right, let's get into today's episode where we are talking about what in the heck are you going to do with your tax refund this year. So, every single year around this time, I hear the same questions over and over again. What should I do with my tax refund? Should I save it? Should I pay off my debt? Should I spend some of it? Is it okay if I spend some of it? And underneath all of these questions that people ask, usually we come back to a money mindset block. It's a lot of pressure. Maybe it's a little bit of guilt sprinkled in there. And honestly, just a desire to finally feel like you're making the right decision with your money. You're like, oh, gosh, I've got to make sure I don't screw this up this time, right? So today I want to kind of slow the conversation way down and talk through how to use your tax return in a way that is actually going to support your financial goals, your peace of mind, and the season of life that you're in right now, because that is what's most important. We're not basing this off of someone else's season and how their dream life is our dream life. So we're going to use our tax refund to get closer to there. No, we are going to match and we're going to meet the season of life that you are in right now. And as I've shared recently in the last podcast episode, I'm also being a lot more intentional about bringing faith into these conversations, and not in a heavy or overwhelming way, but just in a way that feels grounding and more real, because money decisions, truly, they're only just a tiny, tiny, tiny bit math. These money decisions are way more emotional, spiritual, and deeply connected to how safe or how stressed we're feeling day to day. So, if you're listening while you're waiting for your refund, or maybe you've already got it and it's just sitting there staring at you, and maybe you've already spent it and you're feeling a little bit of regret, this episode is for you, okay? No matter where you're at with this whole tax refund, maybe even if you're not even getting one this year, still listen, see if you can find some value in this. Anytime some extra cash comes into your life, this episode can still be applicable for you. There's no shame here. There's only learning and forward movement because, like I say all the time, you have to be consistent. God doesn't want us to be perfect, He wants us to be consistent. Okay. Now, let's discuss why you don't have to decide right away what to do with your tax refund. So, one of the most important things I want to say right at the beginning is this: you do not need to decide what to do with your tax refund the moment that it hits your bank account. I know it sounds simple, but most people, this is where they immediately go wrong, right? When that money shows up, sometimes it feels like a relief, like you have some breathing room, or sometimes it feels dangerous. It feels like you don't know how to hold that much money. It feels like you have to get rid of it. You have to get rid of it. You have to go spend it. You have to go reward yourself. You just have to get rid of it. Your brain wants consistency and your brain wants what's familiar to you. If you are not used to having a large amount of money in your bank account, your brain is going to say, get that the freak out of here. I don't want it in here. That doesn't feel comfortable. I'm not capable of having that much money in my bank account. Get rid of it. So, what I've learned, both personally and through working with so many women, is the best financial decisions are going to almost always come after you take a pause. So let's just take a step back. Let's kind of look at the situation once we've got that money in our account. Let's not take a pause that's rooted in fear or guilt or shame or anything like that, but let's take a pause that gives you the space to think clearly and logically instead of emotionally. Because your brain is going to come at you and it's going to say, oh my gosh, I can finally breathe. I'm going to do this, 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 and this, and this. Or it's going to say, get that money the freak out of here. I don't care what you do with it. Just get it out, right? But we want to make sure that regardless of how our brain chooses to approach getting more money, we want to make sure that we're approaching it from a smart, financially beneficial standpoint, right? So I usually recommend giving yourself at least a day, maybe 2 days, depending on, how impulse heavy you are, right? Before you spend any of it. And during that time, I want you to ask yourself some honest questions. What's currently causing me the most stress about money? What feels super heavy right now? If nothing changed except for one thing over the next 3 months, what would make the biggest difference in how I feel? And this is also where faith can show up in a really practical way because discernment is not loud. You're not gonna be able to hear your discernment over your own brain rushing to try to do something. It needs the silence, it needs the peace, it needs the clarity. And when you slow down long enough to listen, you would be surprised at how much you know what needs attention. So, this is also why I truly am such a big believer in being able to see your full financial picture before assigning money to go anywhere. And if you don't already have something like this, like an annual budgeting spreadsheet, I do have mine linked in the show notes. This is the exact one that I use, and it's designed to help you see everything in one place. So that way you're not making decisions in isolation and you're not making decisions 1 month at a time when maybe that money might be better spent 3 months from now when you know that you have a trip coming up, or you know that you have your kid's birthday, or you know that you have a surgery coming up and you need some extra money for medical needs, right? So you don't have to use the budgeting spreadsheet, of course, but clarity really does change how confident you feel about these choices. So I would highly recommend getting it and trying it out. I love it. I use it every single day for tracking my expenses, tracking my sinking funds, my savings, all of those things. And let's discuss about what ways we should be using our tax refund. So, there's not one correct way to use a tax refund, but there are some patterns that I usually typically see over and over again that tend to bring the most peace of mind and the most momentum. And momentum is crucial. It is crucial. It's crucial in debt payoff and it is crucial in your savings journey. So I like to think of these four main areas as something where your refund can help support you, and then you work on the rest and you work through it and you say, okay, my refund is going to support me here, and this is going to get me, X of the amount of the way towards my goal. And so I'm going to continue focusing on this one. Or maybe you're going to split it in between two. What matters is your intention. What matters is your consistency, not perfection, like I already said, right? So, number one, catching up when you've been behind. If you are behind on bills, payments, expenses, if you've got late fees that are racking up, if you've got overdraft fees that are racking up, this is the most loving and responsible place to start. So, this might mean paying off something that's been sitting on a credit card, catching up on a medical bill, or covering an expense that you've been pushing off because there just wasn't room for it before. So, using your tax refund to catch up is not boring and it's not wasted money. This is getting you to a point of stabilization so you can actually move forward. So, when you're behind financially, even if it's just a little bit, it takes up a lot more mental space than we really realize. And it shows up in how tense we feel, how reactive we're being, and how hard it is to actually plan ahead. And when you clear that weight off of your shoulders, it gives you room to think again. And this isn't about, fixing past mistakes or punishing yourself. It's about understanding where you are and saying, okay, this is what needs attention right now. Okay, let's move to step two. So, you want to build some stability through your savings. So, if you're not behind or once you get caught up, the next most impactful place that your refund can go is into some sort of savings or buffer. So, emergency funds are not there to scare you, okay? They're there to protect you and they're there to give you peace of mind. Even if it's just a few $100s set aside, that is going to help you change the way that you make decisions when something unexpected comes up. And this is what helps you either not use credit cards at all when you have an emergency or to use them less, right? So I see this especially with families or households when they're on a variable income. When there's no cushion, every single surprise that pops up becomes a crisis and a scramble to come up with money. When you have a cushion, this simply becomes just an inconvenience. And that's what I think a lot of people crave so desperately, is to get to the point where when they hear a number, they don't panic. They don't they don't start scrambling in their mind of how am I going to make that work? They're just like, oh man, that's unfortunate, but that is exactly why we've got that, $600 in our emergency fund. Or that's exactly why we have that $850 in our car maintenance fund, because now it's just an inconvenience. It's not a scramble to come up with money or to now finally have to dread putting more money on your credit cards when you've been working so hard on paying them off. This makes such a big, big difference because stability creates peace, and your peace makes it significantly easier to move forward in your life and in your decisions with way more confidence. So, your savings have got to be a priority to you, okay? Even if it's just that first $1,000 in your emergency fund, if it's, $500 in your car repair fund, just something, okay? Something to help you ease that burden. Now, step three, I want you to pay down your debt with a plan. So, if debt is a part of your story, which most people carry some form of debt, okay? You're not alone if you have debt. You're not a bad person if you have debt. Most people are in some form of debt. Even me, I have my student loans and I have my mortgage. That counts as debt, right? Not even I am not debt free. Okay. So if debt is a part of your story, your tax refund can be really, really powerful to give you some momentum. So not all debt needs to be treated the same way. So, like how I said, I have student loans and I have my mortgage. If I also had credit card debt, my student loans and my mortgage, those do not trump my consumer debt because that is going to be significantly more expensive over time. So, your high interest consumer debt needs to be prioritized. So, paying off a mortgage like I'm doing, that's more long term planning. But what we need to work on right now in the current moment is that high interest consumer debt. Okay. And what I found is that when you see the actual numbers, it makes your whole debt payoff journey feel significantly less overwhelming. And when you can actually see how your extra payments towards your principal can affect your timeline and how it can impact, your debt payoff journey and learning how to put extra payments towards, one debt instead of multiple extra payments towards multiple debts and not really making any progress anywhere, it makes a big difference being able to see your numbers and to see everything laid out for you. So when you see how these extra payments affect your total debt payoff timeline, it turns it into something that's actually tangible for you. It's not going to feel like it's 50 years down the road and it's never going to happen for you, right? It actually shows you, oh yeah, I can do that. Oh, yeah, an extra $25 a month every single month towards this loan is going to help me pay it off, a year sooner. Amazing, right? So, if this is something that you want help actually being able to visualize, I have my debt payoff tools and my mortgage payoff calculator linked in the show notes, and they're designed to help you understand the impact of your decisions and not pressure you into any specific one. I absolutely would recommend the debt payoff calculator. This is such a great way to visualize all of your debts and understand how you need to move forward with paying these debts off. Now, once we feel like we are on that firm, solid foundation, let's move to step 4, which is supporting your future goals and spending some money because it's completely okay to spend some money for yourself. If you've listened to my previous podcast episodes, you know that I always, always will support you spending some kind of money for yourself because without doing that, you're going to feel burnt out, you're going to feel overwhelmed, and you're going to feel depressed about the whole thing. So, my recommendation is with the money that is remaining, split it. So use part of your refund for future focused goals, like sinking funds for upcoming expenses, investing if you're in a stable place, or even something like a home or business goal that's been sitting on the back burner. And then I want you to take the other portion of the money and I want you to go spend it. Get your nails done, buy a new outfit, buy a new face wash, right? Like just do something. Do something for yourself because you've earned it. You are putting the work in. This is not irresponsible. This is intentional planning and it's intentional taking care of yourself because faith does not mean ignoring the future and it does not mean ignoring yourself. It means preparing for the future with wisdom and it means taking care of yourself with humility. Okay? Spend the money. It's okay. If you've worked through steps 1, 2, and 3, it's okay if you get to step 4 to spend some of the money. Now, I want to talk briefly about a few things that kind of tend to create some regret later. And this is not to shame you, this is just to help you avoid some unnecessary stress. So, spending the entire refund impulsively without addressing existing stress points usually is going to lead to the exact same issues and the exact same pressure coming back just a couple weeks later. So, using your tax refund to support a lifestyle that you can't actually maintain long term will undo your progress and it will dig you further and further into debt. And comparing how you use your refund to how someone else uses theirs This is always going to lead to misalignment because it's not based on your season of life, how I talked about earlier in the beginning of this episode. Your responsibilities, your values, and your season of life are different, and stewardship is going to look different for everyone. So, if you take nothing else from this episode, take this, okay? You do not need a complicated plan. Choose one main focus and one secondary focus. Work through those steps as they see appropriate. That's enough. And if percentages help you think a little bit better, do half stored towards stability and catching up, do a portion towards debt, do a portion towards future goals and spending. There's no perfect formula and there's no perfect percentage for you to apply your tax refund towards. What matters is that your decisions align with what you actually need right now. And if you want help laying this out clearly in a budgeting spreadsheet and the debt payoff trackers, everything that I personally use is linked in the show notes. These are tools, they're not rules. They are meant to help you and support you, okay? Make sure that you use code HMM podcast to get your 15% off as a thank you for being a podcast listener. Now, I want to leave you with this thought. So, using your tax refund well is not about getting it perfect. How many times have I said in this episode that God does not expect you to be perfect? It's about choosing intention, clarity, and peace of mind and stability over that impulse, right? Over those impulses to get rid of the money, to spend it, to do whatever the heck, right? You do not have to fix everything all at once. That's not going to happen unless your refund is huge, right? One wise decision in your savings goals or your debt payoff goals or your sinking funds goals, whatever, that's going to create the momentum that you didn't have before. It's going to create momentum that you didn't expect. And you have to be willing and you have to be disciplined enough to continue that momentum, to be consistent with that momentum. And that is exactly how you're going to make your financial goals happen. Thank you for being here. Thank you for trusting me with these conversations. And I will talk to you again soon next week on Her Money Mindset.